Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Gotta just get hyped up every single time I hear that. Wayne, we love you. Thanks for creating that intro for us. I am Jeff, and I am with Mike today and our amazing guest, Jessica, coming from Colorado. But before we get into the show, we wanted to say thanks to the listeners for tuning in to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. And if you're brand new to the show, this podcast is part of a nonprofit, a grassroots nonprofit headquartered in Vacaville, California. It's called C4 Leaders, and we're the only nonprofit to utilize the pizza making process. You heard it right. The pizza making process to create space for our companions to be seen, heard, and loved. We also write children's books. We have 2 of them that are out. We host this podcast and use the most amazing handmade, hand-tossed sourdough pizza. That's right, sourdough, baby, to bring out the best in each other. So check out pizzadays.org so you can support our important work that we're doing. Let's get into this episode because it's going to be a good one. And I'm going to tell you to take out a pen and paper right now because our guest is going to drop some very important knowledge on us. It is Jessica Speer coming from Colorado. First place where you can find Jessica. She's all over the place, but just go to her website, jessicaspeer.com. And it's JESSICASPEER.com. Here we go about our guest. Jessica is the highly acclaimed author of BFF or NRF. Not really friends, Pasho, for you and I. I think we know the BFF, maybe, but not the NRF. So thank you for that. A Girl's Guide to Happy Friendships in Middle School. And her second book, Middle School Safety Goggles Advised. And then on August 8th, her third book comes out, The Phone Book. So congrats on all that, Jessica. A quick review, which you've already seen, I'm sure, but I was checking you out from BFF or NRF. And the quote is this book is an excellent guide to friendship for tweens. It is super engaging with the quizzes and fill in the blank sections. The cute graphics make it really fun and accessible, and it provides really great info that resonates with tween girls without ever seeming preachy. Jessica's interactive books engage and entertain readers by combining the stories of preteens and teens with fun activities and practical insights. She has a master's degree in social sciences and explores topics in ways that connect with kids. Jessica, thanks for sharing your gifts with the world and for choosing to guide our youth and families in their quest to develop their best selves. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Jeff and Mike. I'm excited to be here with you because we are totally on the same wavelength. We're doing kind of the same things. We're talking about helping our youth and helping them develop skills and grow into, the best people they can be. So yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, and me too. We have, we're season 3. I didn't even get into that, episode 22, and we're well over 100. And we haven't really explored this space a whole bunch. We get incredible guests sharing all their life's essential ingredients, but I'm really excited for this. Mike and I have been longtime basketball coaches with youth. And so I think we're just personally going to get a lot of great information that's going to allow us to do better just in our roles as dads and humans. So again, thanks for coming on. We always start each episode with a thought of the day. And this one's from Oprah Winfrey. Family should be the place where you can be your most complete self, where you're accepted and appreciated, seen and valued, even in moments of disagreement. It should be your soft place to fall, the place where you're reminded that no matter what happens to you in the face of your deepest challenges, you are loved. Why would I pick that one for you?
Oh, I love it. I'm so pleased you picked that for me. One, because I love Oprah. She's a mentor of mine. And two, because that's the foundation, right? When we feel that huge sense of love and belonging at home, it just sets us up for everything else in our life, because relationships are tricky. And sometimes we need a place to just go home and be accepted for exactly who we are. So I love that. I love that. Starting with the family. That's our foundation.
All right. All right. So you don't know this, but we are 100% on picking a quote that resonates with the guest. So I'm going to take my hat off to that one here a little bit and say that we still have our streak. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for
All
sure.
right.
That was awesome.
All right. All right. So here we go. So we always start out every episode after the thought of the day with the same question. You can take it any which way you want, but what was life like growing up? Just want the listeners to kind of get an idea of, who you are and what life looked like.
Yeah, and that's a great question. For me, it was tricky as a kid, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I didn't have a family that felt really stable and safe, when I was growing up. And my dad had some struggles with alcohol, and there was a lot of stress on my mom, and my brothers and me we lived through that. We watched a not the most stable sort of home life growing up. So when I became an adult, it's not surprising that relationships became really important to me. And what makes relationships thrive? What makes them tick? What makes them healthy? So that's guided all of my work, and especially helping kids develop the skills and the sense of self to develop these really strong, healthy relationships.
I love it. I love it. And listeners, we're going to explore all that and then some here shortly. But I want to get into, so if you're putting all your effort into developing your best self to be, a relationship expert and guiding people on how to develop, and you have 3 books out now, my question in a weird way is, how do you do that? So what are your life's essential ingredients, the things that you do on the daily that perhaps can guide the listeners into, hey, well, I can incorporate one of those ingredients in my life that allows me to be my best self. And in your case, put your energy into helping people develop positive relationships. So what does your day look like, on the daily?
Ooh, well, these days my day looks a lot different than it used to. So these days I'm really focusing more on the writing of my books. But let me tell you about kind of where I started, and because that feeds into some of these ingredients that are feeding now into my books. What got me started mostly was I ran a friendship program for kids. It was mostly populated by girls, which is why the first book is, that the target audience is preteen girls. But when I was running that friendship program, I was kind of testing ideas with what might really help girls develop some safe and healthy and strong skills to develop their friendships, in positive ways. And when I was working this program, I realized there's a lot of friendship truth that we learn over the course of our lives, that it's helpful if actually kids learn this at a younger age, because it'll help guide them. So some of the ingredients that I'll share with you come from my first book, The Friendship Truths, that I found really helped kids, of all genders, figure out, how to navigate friendship. So the first one, friendship truth number 1, is our healthiest friendships feel safe and accepting. And so just knowing that truth, we can kind of keep an eye out for those friendships that do feel that way. And now for kids, that might not be an experience that's super common, because kids are learning a lot of skills and everyone's navigating friendships as best as they can. But, we can keep an eye out for those friendships that do feel really safe and accepting. So another skill or a friendship truth that I talk to kids about is everyone develops friendship skills at a different pace. So this gives kids and adults kind of the space to see that, hey, we're all human and we're all doing the best we can with the skills we've got. So that, opens the door too to realize, okay, so maybe this friendship doesn't feel like a good fit now, but we're all growing and changing. We're all learning these skills. So giving people the room to grow and change. And I'll mention one more that I found really helpful for kids is friendship truth number 3 is friendships have different phases and change over time. And we as adults know this now that, oh yeah, sometimes our friendships do change over the course of our lives. And for kids, this happens a lot. Sometimes just being placed in a different class can shift up their friendship group, or a move, or, maybe somebody changes their interests. So there's a ton of friendship changes, throughout childhood. And once kids know that, hey, this is just kind of how it is, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just, we're going through a different phase and a different change. It can take them away from, thinking, hey, there's something wrong with me. That realizing that our relationships do ebb and flow and change over time. So those are just some of the truths that I share, with kids, and I share in my first book to help them kind of navigate some of these insights that we know as adults about our relationships. But it helps kids to know these too.
I love it. I love it. And we're going to get into that and then some, but let's get into your, how'd you get started? You answered it a little bit, but you were doing these camps. You said, hey, you know what? I probably want people to take something and to reach a broader audience. And had you ever thought about being an author, or did it just, hey, these camps led me, like, this is the next kind of step for me to evolve on my journey of, I got to put this out and reach more people?
Yeah, it was a blend of both. Like, I've always written in all of my, my career and my jobs. I've worked in nonprofits. I've worked as a college professor. I've worked in all sorts of fields that writing was always a big component of that. And so it was just kind of the perfect next step. I had this program that was really well developed and well defined. And so the first book almost wrote itself. Like, I just want, like you said, I wanted to bring that to a wider audience and use a lot of the tools that I was using with kids. And so that grew into the first book. And then from there, I enjoyed that process so much that and that pandemic hit too. So that also got me deeper into writing. And so then, I dove right into my second book, which unpacks, all the tricky stuff that happens during the middle school years.
Well, let's get into, I know family is everything to you, and trying to help people develop their families in a healthy, safe, and nurturing way. What's to get a little personal, what's one of the best things or favorite things that you love about your family, that when you guys have time, this is what we do, and this is our go-to to just kind of feel that love that we share?
Good question. For me, I think just time together, and it doesn't even have to be like, doing a bunch of stuff. For us, you really prioritize dinner time. And we always have, from when my kids were very little. Dinner is a really special time in our family. And as my kids are now teens, it gets harder and harder, but we make sure every week that we have time to sit down as a family. And typically I have some sort of question that I throw out to the group just to kind of get us talking. And sometimes my kids will be the ones to throw out the question, just something fun, something to kind of prompt some conversation, help us to learn about each other, and keep the door open. So yeah, for us, meals are a really important time for us to connect as a family.
I love that. And listeners, she's dropping knowledge on us, and there's so much evidence behind the importance of family mealtime. And in our country, these numbers are a little bit off because I think it's hard to get accurate numbers, but it's around in the 30% or so of families that regularly have meals together without all these other outside influences, just kind of coming to the table and seeing and hearing and being there for each other. Spain is the highest. About 87% have about five or more meals together per week to create that space. And families that share that space, there's decrease in student to high risk behavior, increase in social well-being, decrease in anxiety, decrease in obesity, all kind of evidence behind the importance of family meals. And so what a great gift you give to your children to just create that space to just kind of be and sit, and for them to be able to think and share whatever is going on in their life. And I think when we start breaking down each day in the life of say a young student, and I love education. I've worked in that space, and teachers are amazing, but they're just doing so much, and there's 30 something kids in their class. And so your child might not have the time to be seen or heard by that teacher because there's a lot going on. And then if we're not creating that space at home around our mealtime, when is your child really going to have time to ask the questions that they have going on in their mind? And if we don't allow that space, they're going to turn to somewhere or someone to start to say, hey, well, how do I figure out the answers to these things that are going on inside me? And that's going to lead me to the next question for you, is what can we, and I think it's all of our responsibility, parents, teachers do to help children navigate just the digital kind of habits that are going on throughout the whole world. And I'm sure in your book and probably in the one that's coming out in August, you've done a lot of research in that space, but I'm fascinated with the effect, good and bad, that technology is having on our youth and the adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. So technology has really reshaped childhood, especially in the last 10 years. It's really reshaped how kids are spending their time. If we look at preteens, they're spending more than 5 hours a day on devices outside of school. So not even for their schoolwork. This is just gaming or social media or whatever. And for teens, it's over 8 hours, outside of school screen time. This is, entertainment time, YouTube and social media again. So it is profoundly shifted kids and how they're spending their day. And that certainly piqued my curiosity too, which is what inspired, my third book that's coming out. So there's a lot to unpack here. And what I learned is that this is all unfolded so quickly. It's unfolded faster than we can put some guidelines and recommendations in place, for kids and families, which has put the burden on the parents on the shoulders of parents to try to navigate out this, like figure it out on the fly. Like, oh gosh, now how do I keep my kids safe and healthy with all this screen time? And we're just starting to see that we need some more guidance there. A couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Surgeon General just came out with the advisory on social media that, hey, this actually might not be totally safe for your kids. We can't guarantee this, especially if they're spending over 3 hours a day on social media. We're seeing some correlations between depression and anxiety. So this is all new. So that made me want to start to put something out there to help. So back to your question, how do we help? And we all hear the thing about, model our own behavior, model what we're doing on our phone, not texting while driving, not texting while someone's talking to us, putting spaces in the home that are tech free. So we've heard that. We've heard to really watch sleep. But one thing I want to add to that, that parents can help, is really helping their kids understand how technology works. Like, what is the business model of tech companies? Because I find that when kids are really informed users of tech, consumers of tech is what we all are, they might be making better choices. So if they understand that, whether it be Google or social media or games, they're really fueled by advertisements. And so, they're motivated to keep us on screens, to sell more space, to sell us stuff, to build their business. That's kind of the American, business model for a lot of tech platforms. So when kids understand that well, they're in a better place to start to manage their digital habits better. So talking a lot about that, really not shaming, but open, honest conversations about, wow, look at all those ads you have to watch to continue gaming. Or, wow, look at your social media feed. Isn't that interesting that you're seeing these ads that you earlier searched on, this browser? So helping them connect the dots, of what's happening to them online, so they can make more informed choices of their time. And again, this is just a beginning step because, let's face it, we're all up against some of the very best engineers and designers of these platforms, and they are designed to keep us scrolling, and they're doing a really fabulous job of that. So we just have to do our best as caregivers, as parents, to help our kids be really informed consumers of tech, and modeling the behaviors, putting a framework in place at home that helps them start to build some safe and healthy digital habits.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but it gets me a little bit riled up and I'm not doing anything about it, but just, listening to you say, hey, this is all new territory. It ain't new territory. We've been knowing, and it's hard to do research on children, but everybody knows the influence of technology. We had Dr. Anna Lampkin from Stanford on the show, who wrote Dopamine Nation. And yeah, none of this stuff is new. We're just not taking action to implement things that can protect our children,
Yeah.
and I still think you're way short. I think it's so hard to get the numbers, but you're saying over 8 hours on screen time, because unfortunately kids are on their phone at school. And I'm going to come back to that with you. And I'm terrible in math. My Pasho knows this when we were at USF, but you said 8 hours. They need to be sleeping 8 hours. They're in
Mhm.
school for close to 8 hours. So basically they're on their device, all the time.
Yes.
And it's just crazy to me that we're not doing more. And then the U.S. Surgeon General just saying, hey, we just don't have enough data. It's just now we got to do better in that space. And so that's my question to you. Said you were a professor for a little bit. So I'm going to put you as principal now at a junior high. And what is going to be your policy on technology? And I'll just specifically say students having their phone at school. What
Yeah.
would you recommend if you're dropped it in the junior high right by your house? Say, hey, we want you to implement something. What's going to be best for our students? What would that be?
Well, my stance would be a hard line. There would be no phones in the classroom whatsoever. Yeah, so that I would take a hard line on that, because what I found, working on this book, is now teachers are in the position of policing this. So kids are in the back of the room with their phones, and so I think we can't put all this burden on the teachers too. So I think if I was the principal of a school, it would be a really hard line that there are no phones in classrooms whatsoever, or even the lunchroom, even lunchroom. So I would be pretty clear on that. And you're right. We have a lot of data. And as when I was researching this book, I actually listened in on several, Senate hearings of the online, Kids Safety Act. And so nothing is going anywhere. And I think because what's happening in this country is there's so many other issues, and that there are great ideas out there. They're getting testimony. They're looking at the results, but nothing is happening. Nothing is, and it's been years now. It's been 5 years, and it's not happening. So I do think there does need to be more of a groundswell from parents, and what I have seen happening in school sometimes is it's the groundswell of parents that are then influencing the school to put some hardline rules in place. So we as caregivers and parents, we do need to start to speak out more about this, and using our voice to try to move these things forward, because things are stalling. Things are not happening. Decisions aren't being made. Guidelines aren't being put in place. And what's interesting is, that's not happening around the world. So in a lot of Asian countries, there are clear rules. In fact, if parents allow their kids more than a certain amount of screen time, the family gets fined. So that, and that's probably not something that we would ever do in this country, but it's really interesting to see what is happening around the world, as far as this goes. And it's not what's happening here. We're really slow to this, but we can use some other countries as a guide as to how they are taking action to support kids and families.
Jessica, we always talk about the negative influence of phones. Is there anything positive about our youth having a phone? Because I know when we got our kids' phone, it was like a safety for us. So we know where they're at, or if they need us, we need that instant contact for whatever reason. But is there anything positive that we can do with the phone as far as what they're seeing on their phone?
Yeah.
We can help them out.
Yeah, and when we talk about phones, I like to say, okay, so there's a smartphone that is fully connected, so it has a browser and it's on social media, and then there's the phone that's that preteens and teens would call the dumb phone, that actually doesn't have that. That dumb phone only has the ability to text and to make phone calls. Period. So when, to answer your question, let's talk about the smartphone that actually is totally fully connected. Because that's a place that is kind of the wild, wild west. There's no protections for kids to see appropriate content, or to be influenced in some negative ways there. So for that, it's the positives. And again, I'm going to reference the advisory report that the U.S. Surgeon General just put out, basically on social media. Says the positives of that are for marginalized kids. So kids that are having a hard time finding community, which is often a lot of LGBTQ plus kids, so for marginalized kids, that can be a plus. They can make connections there. And I do recommend, again, because this is falling to families to navigate much on their own, there is a page and a half executive summary report for what the Surgeon General just put out that is in very plain language, that is a great conversation starter with kids and families, and say, this is what we're concerned about. This is, this report that just came out really clearly outlines, what the concerns are, but also the positives too. So yeah, that was a long answer to your question, but so those are some of the positives. Is for marginalized kids, it does help them find connection and support.
Well, let's get, that's a good question, my Pasho. Let's get into friendship, since that's another, area of your expertise. And let's break it down. Just what, you're talking about marginalized, and I understand what you mean by that, but let's just see if there's any kind of tie into the pandemic and how that kind of pushed kids, so to say, to the margins with just creating and learning how to be a friend. And so what's the latest and greatest on that? And what tips would you have for parents who are listening in on just helping their kids, make friends? Because it's not so easy.
It's not easy. And even without a pandemic in the mix, for this age group, sometimes it's hard. There's a big shift developmentally that happens, at the end of elementary and into the beginning of middle school, where friendships used to be based on play. It was much more simple. And then all of a sudden there's this developmental shift where kids are, starting to explore their identity and their interests might be changing. So that tends to shift the friendship scene a lot. So then we throw in the pandemic, and that makes it even more complicated because kids might not know exactly where their friendships stand. So, we learn skills as humans, social emotional skills, by interacting with other humans and learning from those experiences and having guides in our lives to help us through these experiences. So, during the pandemic, kids, they didn't get that experience. So, from what I hear from teachers is they've noticed, some kids are a couple years behind, socially and emotionally where they might normally be. So a lot of kids have had a hard time shifting back and figuring out, where am I in my friendships? And because during that process, they might have shifted in that developmental phase from these friendships being more simple based on play and proximity to all of a sudden, maybe they're a preteen, early teen, and friendships are about something else at this point. It's more about connection and shared interests and things like that. So there are a lot of kids out there that are trying to find their footing in their friendships. So parents can help their kids, one, by being a really safe sounding board for them, getting back to your quote at the beginning. So being the place where our kids come home and they know there is that love and acceptance and belonging at home, especially during this period where they might be trying to find that in their peers, but it might be still a journey for them to find that love and connection and support in their peers. They might not be there yet, but as long as they have that at home, we know they still have that strong foundation as they try to find that amongst their peers.
I love it. And you talk about at home. And so having at least a one person, and I know we'll change it up from friendships to bowling, because I know that's one of the things that you do a lot of research on and are an expert. And I know one of the strong factors in helping anybody get through that is having at least one other family member in your life that you can kind of turn to. But what's the latest research on bullying, and then just kind of define that and the difference between cyberbullying and just regular bullying, and what we can do better in that space as just people and parents?
Yeah. And this is always a tough one. And so I think we've done such a great job of raising awareness about bullying that sometimes bullying behavior is confused for just mean behavior. So I usually start there with kids, is understanding the difference between bullying and mean behavior. And none, I wish I could alleviate both of those, but they're both present, and helping our kids understand the difference helps us know how to navigate them. So mean behavior might be, a rude comment, or a snide remark, or leaving somebody out. It's more once, maybe twice. There's not a big power imbalance between these two kids, or a group of kids. It's strife amongst kids, and it hurts. The mean behavior hurts too. So just acknowledging that, and then where that becomes bullying is it's pretty mean and aggressive. So it might be verbally, it might be physically, but it's pretty cruel and aggressive. It is repeated. And sometimes there's an imbalance of power. So one of this person in this group has more status than somebody else, and it feels one directional. Okay, so that's how we know, oh, this is a situation of bullying. And sometimes we might need we quite possibly might need some help there. So in a mean situation, if it's just mean behavior, we learn how to deal with that as humans. We learn, one, we can speak up. Two, we can ignore it. Three, we can maybe try some conflict resolution. So we can figure out, hey, there's ways to navigate this. When it comes to bullying, we absolutely need to make sure that stops. That can be so detrimental to the mental health of that youth, that we need to make that stop. And so if we're aware of that as adults, what can we do to help make sure that situation is resolved, to keep that student safe? And what can we do to help that student know that they are supported, and that we will help them through this situation, so we don't leave them hanging in this situation. Online is really tricky. So now, of course, a lot of kids socialize online. So both mean and bullying behaviors have shifted into the online world, which makes it even trickier. So what I encourage kids and parents to do is, if they are getting bullied online, it's important to screenshot that, so they can save that. They can help show what is happening online, because sometimes it's a very private space that this is happening. It's Snapchat that's going to disappear or something like that. So they need to save that. A lot of schools have rules in place where they need to help in this situation. They can't ignore this. Even if it's not happening on school grounds, they need to get involved and help, and then to report that to the platforms, whether it's a social media platform, reporting this behavior, so that these platforms are aware that this is happening as well.
Great information. I don't know if we're totally going a different way, because I don't know what this question is, but I got it in researching you, and I'm interested in it. What's the Yoda way?
Okay, so this is what I call the Yoda way. Is so when our kids come home and they've had a really bad day socially. Okay, so there's been some mean behavior, or there's some conflict with their friends, or they're feeling left out. So what is really helpful for kids is when they come home, getting back to your quote, they share with us, and we don't go off on our own emotional roller coaster. We ground ourselves, we listen, we empathize with their situation, but we are not jumping in and adding, to the emotion of this event. We are a grounding space for them. We're not the one out there, immediately going to solve and fix this, and, jump into conclusions about what we're hearing from our kids. We are the grounded, safe space for them to come home and share. And that means that our kids will be more likely to come home and share with us, because if we as parents are going off on our own emotional roller coaster, they're going to stop sharing with us. Probably in the early teens, they're like, it is not worth it. I'm not going to tell my mom or dad, because they're going to be so upset by this that I'm not going to share. So yeah, that to me is the Yoda way, is to be the grounding force to help our kids feel heard and navigate tough emotions. So they then, can gain the skills and the confidence to start to navigate these situations on their own.
Mike has such a great Yoda impersonation. Pasho, hit him with it, baby.
I was just thinking I should get a little Yoda somewhere and put it around the house just to remember that right there.
I have one. Here, I'm going to show you my, look at my little, there's my little Yoda.
Oh yeah.
I got to get one of those. I got to get one of those, no doubt.
Listen, you will, Pasho. Listen, you will.
Well, that's a good Yoda. All right.
Not in the voice, but yeah, I love me some Yoda. All right. So I have another one that I don't know what it is, but what's I power?
Okay, so this is helping kids learn some conflict resolution skills. And this one's sometimes tough for adults too. So when we're in a conflict with somebody or there's some sort of struggle, we can come about it two ways. We can come about it with, you always do this, or you never invite me, or you always go first. Or we can say, hey, I feel really frustrated because it feels to me like you're always going first. Can I have a turn? And so when I was working with kids in my friendship programs, they got it right away. We would role play both and they would say, oh yeah, I would so rather have someone use that I power than the other one, because that's just fueling the conflict even more. So, this, like all of our, a lot of our emotional and social skills, takes practice. And so I would practice this a lot with kids, but that's what I call I power, because it actually does give us a lot of power to solve the conflict instead of adding more fuel to the conflict. So coming to the person that we need to speak with, starting with I and how we're feeling and going from there.
I love it. Great tip. Great tip. Difficult question I'm getting ready to ask you now, but what insight do you give to the youth and the parents that you work with on just learning how to identify what they feel? And I'm talking about their emotions. I think that's such a challenging space to really take a step back and breathe through that and then try and find the word that describes what I'm feeling. So now we can take that knowledge and say, okay, let me take action towards dealing with that. But how do you help young people and parents navigate that space?
Yeah, and we could start really young with kids. And a lot of us now, maybe both of you and I, when we were growing up, this was not really a thing. We were kind of told to go to our room, or deal with it. So we as adults are figuring out this whole process of emotional intelligence. But as we help our kids do this, we actually get the benefit of getting better at it ourselves too. So say we have a little one, a little toddler, and they're about to lose it. We have a tantrum coming up. So, but they might not have the vocabulary or, the cognitive skill yet to recognize what's happening in their body. So we can help them. We can say, hey, I noticed you're squeezing your fists and your shoulders are tight and it seems like you might be feeling really angry. Is that right? Is that, what are you feeling in your body? So we as parents can start by noticing when we see our kids having a bigger emotional reaction, helping identify that with them and asking questions and not putting any judgment on that emotion, because all emotions are okay, even the uncomfortable ones. They're all okay. So by reacting that way, we're letting our kid know that, yeah, we all get angry sometimes. And I can see that maybe that's what you're experiencing right now. And maybe this is how it's happening in your body. So it starts young. And it goes from there. And like everything, we just keep talking about it in the most open way that we can.
Again, she's dropping some knowledge on us, Pasho and listeners. I've got 2 pages of notes already written down. Any plans for future books for you? I know your third one is just coming out August 8th, so congrats on that. Any other books that you have your kind of eye on?
I've been writing, speaking on the emotion thing, I have been writing some shorter picture books on that, because that's a really important life skill, is kind of figuring out how to navigate and manage our emotions in healthy ways. So I'm playing with some shorter books, again, for a younger audience in that. So that's what I'm working on now. But yeah, so maybe those will come to life at some point too.
I love it. That's my next book too. I'm writing 5 total children's. My books are about the pizza process, called the Pizza Day series, and my next one's going to be on emotions and kind of how those get reflected in the toppings, so to say, kind of our life. And I'm really excited to get that one going. I started it, but get that one out there. Any other parts of your 3 amazing books that we've danced around kind of all over the place, and Pasho can definitely cut the rug. He is highly skilled dancer, but anything that you feel like we've missed that is important for the listeners who have some children or just want to get better themselves, hey, Jeff, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the work you guys are doing. So first of all, thank you. And giving parents the space and caregivers and leaders the space to just keep learning and knowing that we're all doing the best we can. I feel like parents always have a lot on their shoulders, and I feel like we especially do now as we navigate this whole tech thing. So I would just encourage anyone listening to make sure you're taking care of yourself too, because that's a big part of it. If we can take care of ourselves, we can do a better job of making sure those around us feel really loved and supported. So that's a good place to start.
I love it. All right, we're at the end of the show. We always end with our final quote, and it's from John Alston. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. And let's fast forward for you about 60 years. You're on your deathbed. You have the millions of readers that have read your book, and they all wanted to come wish you well as you get ready to take your last breath. You have your family there, everybody that's been important in your life. What is it as you're taking that last breath that you want to leave behind with them?
I would just leave as much love as I can with them. I would want all those that I am so grateful for in my life to just know that I so love them. And, when I'm no longer around, I just want them to know that love carries forward, and I will always, be there in their hearts with sending them love.
I love it. Pashito, get us out. He's tearing up over there. He is feeling the love for sure.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for all the work you do. I just wish you were, or maybe I was a lot younger and I could take advantage of all this great knowledge and help me to be a better parent. Because, man, I wish I had that knowledge. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Keep doing great things and looking forward to many, many more books. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having. What a joy to speak with you, and keep up the amazing work that you both are doing.
Thanks. And listeners, again, it's been with Jessica Speer. You can find her jessicaspeer.com. She's got 3 books out there. Go out and get them. Check out her site. A lot of good information on that. And you know how we do it, Pasho. Boom, baby. That just happened. We out.